Hey, I'm Liz Dyer. I'm the founder of the Mama Bears. It's an organization that is committed to supporting, educating, and empowering moms of LGBTQ kids and the LGBTQ community. And I'm excited that I'm here today with my friend Sara Cunningham, who is the founder of Free Mom Hugs. I really don't have to say much about her. I know you guys know who she is. She's all over the internet and media and news outlets. Even Jamie Lee Curtis is tweeting about her because she's making a movie about Sara's story, and Jamie Lee is going to play Sara in that movie. So, hey, Sara, it's great to be with you today.
Thank you, Liz. I love that we're doing this together. I've been giddy about it. It's like I know we get to talk a lot, but I'm really excited about this, especially just with you, and always look forward to visiting with you, but especially now to be able to do it together and to be able to talk with our friends. I'm really excited.
Well, I'm excited too. And I don't know if everybody knows this, but over the years, Sara and I have just become very close friends, and we talk almost every week on the phone. We have a little ongoing group chat that we do online, and it's just a really special relationship. It's fun and meaningful to have someone that's so passionate about the same things that you're passionate about, and so involved in the same things that you're involved about, and someone that you completely trust and get, and someone who gets you. I think that's what's so great is I can just call you up and say something and you totally get me.
I love that too. And when you said that, our friendship has grown, but it's something that I just really always look forward to, that, the experience that we've had together. And part of this conversation, I don't want to get ahead of you, but when we were thinking about what could we share, because we share a lot of friends in common. We have a lot of interests that are the same. And so in thinking that, what could we talk about that we could share with our friends that maybe they haven't heard of before, maybe things like that. So we came up with a couple of questions, and I think this will help those who are new to this relationship, and what we do collectively and independently will help understand a little better. And it's fun. So I put them in the back. Hold on. Do you want me to start with the questions, Liz?
Okay. Yes, do. I love that you came up with this idea. This is a great idea.
Yeah, I love it too, because it helps people who are just meeting us for the first time, and the friends that we have in common for a long time. So where did you first meet, and what did you first notice about each other? This is a question that we haven't heard the answers from each other yet. So we talked about the questions. How did we first meet, and what did we first notice about each other? And this is the first time that we're hearing our answers. And do you want to go first, or you want me to?
Sure, I'll go first.
Okay.
Well, I had met you online almost about a year probably before I met you in person. So I had a good feeling about who you were and the person you were. And I think we talked on the phone at least once before then, before I met you in person. And the first time I met you in person, though, was at a Mama Bear gathering in Grapevine, Texas. And it was about a year after we started Serendipity Doodah. It was in the spring of 2015. And there were about 25 or 30 of us at this gathering. At that time, there were only a few hundred in the online group. And I was in the hotel hallway, and you came in, and when you saw me, you screamed and ran towards me. And I'll never forget that. And it was just like what I thought it would be, because some of my first impressions of you, Sara, was just that you were a very passionate and energetic person, and that your energy was very positive. You just have a very positive aura about you. And that was my first impression of you. And when I met online and when I met you in person.
Oh, well, thank you. I feel the same way. When I had conversations with you through online, through the group, when I first met you, I considered you a strong mentor, I didn't know much about you personally other than what we just, talked about within the group. And that was wonderful. I loved it. It was like a wellspring of support and resources. So I already had that admiration as her being a facilitator and founder of the group that I held so dear. So you can imagine meeting her in the flesh for the first time. I mean, I drove from where I live to the hotel. So I have all, like, what is it, 2.5 hours just building up. And when I walked into that lobby and you and Sandy come around the corner, and I think I squealed like a teen girl. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm meeting Liz Dyer in the flesh. And I knew how important this time was going to be. And all my excitement came out, and I yelled like a banshee. I embarrassed her and I embarrassed myself, but it was a wonderful weekend. And even now, there are times when, like, if just the other day I was in the grocery store and I saw someone who kind of looked like you, Liz, and I went through the aisle knowing that we're, on shutdown and you're not in my local Walmart, but I saw you and I went around the corner and it wasn't you. I almost cried because I thought it was you. So, and I always look forward to every time we can get together. The conversations come so easily. And anyway, I first noticed about you just your stature, the way you carried yourself as a woman, a strong woman, independent woman, and with authority, because it takes a lot to gather women together. It's like herding cats, right? Of the very best kind. But I just loved that you were organized and you just put that weekend together like that. I just admired you as a facilitator, organizer, but that's when it really solidified our relationship, I feel. For me.
Yeah, that was a great weekend. I mean, we really it was fun, and it was moving, and it was meaningful. I mean, we did crazy things, we played some crazy games, but we also sat around in a circle and shared our stories and feelings, and it was just very bonding, very meaningful. What else you got?
It met every need, what we were all looking for to connect. We'd already been connected, but it's about keeping connected there. So, yep. Monumental, epic weekend. The next question we had for each other is, what is your favorite sound and what is your least favorite sound?
You
Just
go
being
first
silly.
This time. You go first.
My favorite sound is water of any kind. It can be in an aquarium. Our pool has a filter that rushes out water. We have a small pond in our backyard. Anything that involves water, even running in the tub as you're kind of preparing for that. I love that sound. My least favorite sound is the sound when people over exaggerate their yawns. An exaggerated yawn. I don't know how else to explain it, but when you go, just goes right through me. And I do it. I'm guilty of it, but it just,
I don't think I do. I don't think I do that one, so I'm safe around you.
I'll let you know.
Okay. Well, I really had to, I couldn't decide between two favorite sounds. One of my favorite sounds is laughter.
That's a good one.
I love laughter. And the weird thing about laughter for me is when I think about it, the laughter I hear in my head is my mother's laughter. I love my mom's laugh. And I can still hear it. We used to sit around and watch I Love Lucy on TV. This was back when, you had 3 channels and you had to watch it when it came on. And I could still hear my mom laughing at Lucy. She loved her, and it just would crack her up. And also my mom loved kids, and anytime she would see a kid, it would just make her laugh with joy. So my mom laughed a lot, and I just love laughter. But I also love the sound of the ocean. I love to be near the ocean. I love to hear the tide coming in and moving out. And I was lucky enough to live in Los Angeles for a little more than 3 years when I was in my 20s, and I lived very near the beach. I lived in Santa Monica, the Los Angeles area, and I went to the beach every week, at least once, if not several times. And I love the sound of the ocean. And so those are my two favorites.
Yeah, those are great.
What's your least favorite sound? Oh, you said yours.
Oh, I answered it. Yeah.
The yawn. Okay,
Yawn.
yeah, now mine. I don't know. I couldn't really think of much, but I do hate that scratching sound on a chalkboard.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear that
Yeah.
very often anymore, but I really couldn't think of too much about that. That's the only thing that came to mind for me.
Yeah. Well, luckily we don't hear that very often anymore, but yeah, I could relate to that. The third question was, Liz, what is something about you that people would never guess about you? Is there something that is about you that you don't think people know, or you would want to know?
Well, I think one thing that most people would be surprised to find out about me is that I was a bartender and a nightclub manager for quite a few years. I don't know how many years. I would say at least 10 years. And I worked in nightclubs that were in hotels. And there was a period of time, at least in the area where I live, where nightclubs and hotels were very popular and hip places to go in the Dallas area. And I was really successful. I was so successful that actually the company I worked for would send me to other hotels when they were opening nightclubs. So I was like a consultant also. And we had a lot of fun. I know when you and I have been together before, Sarah, we've told you some of the crazy stories about some of the events that we had and some of the things that we planned. But it was a lot of fun, and that's where I met my husband.
I love that. When you first told me about that, it just made perfect sense to me. And I imagine you just gleaning from that experience in your life, that time in your life. And I think about it often. It's crazy how often I think about everything that you've experienced, your life experience. For me, I think something that people would never guess, because that was a hard question for me, because I'm an open book. I just tell everything. But I think that most people are surprised when they find out that I just have a 10th grade education, that I didn't do, very well in school. People think, well, you wrote a book, and it's very hard for me to write. You realize how limited your vocabulary is, for one thing. But I did terrible in school. And, but I kind of have a twofold question to that, or a twofold answer to that too, is that I really want to walk across America. I want to walk across America. And I don't know, I was telling Katrina, my other friend, that it may be after I go on to glory, but I really do want to do that. So I think about it all the time. So those are weird things.
Well, I think about often how much you want to walk across America too.
It's crazy. I think, why would I want to do that? But it just keeps calling to me. So it's weird.
Knowing you, I wouldn't be surprised if you did it. I will worry the whole time, because that's my role. Because I'm just going to throw this out there. When you first started talking about the Free Mom Hugs tour, at that time,
that's right,
that far back, your first kind of statements about that was, I want to walk from Oklahoma to New York to the Stonewall Memorial. And Rex, your husband, and me both said, no.
Time out. Yeah.
We don't want you doing that.
That is true. In fact, what some of you may not know is that it was shortly after the election. And I was laying in my bed and I thought, Lord, what can I do? And I heard a voice say, well, you got that banner. And I was going to actually take that banner, the Free Mom Hugs banner, from Oklahoma City to Washington, D.C. was the original thought process. And then as I posted in the group, in the private online group, say, guys, I think I'm going to walk the banner from Oklahoma City to Washington, D.C. What do you think? And I mean, it just blew up. And that's what I love about the group. But I told the group before I even mentioned it to my husband. And so the next morning we were at coffee and I said, babe, I got an idea. I think I'm going to walk that banner. And he did say, it would take you 3 days to get to Tulsa. He's right. And then rather than DC, Laura Beth and I started brainstorming. And she said, rather than make a political statement out of it, why don't we make a humanitarian effort out of it? And so that birthed the tour from Oklahoma City to the Stonewall Inn in a 100-foot RV. So anyway, that's
Yeah.
the power of the private online Facebook group. You just find out, number one, you're not alone, and you can share your ideas that the world might think is crazy, but you just, I don't know, it's a beautiful freedom that you have there, Liz, in the private group to just share everything, no matter how little or absurd it might sound. So,
Well, I do love the way everybody is so positive and cheers everybody on.
mm-hmm.
That's really empowering, isn't it?
Well, duh. I mean, I wouldn't even be here. Free Mom Hugs wouldn't even be what it is without the group. And we can talk more about that later, but I know where I started from. Let's see. The last question is, how do we make each other a better person? And I don't know, do you want to go first or?
Yeah,
you go first.
I'll go first on this one. Yeah, I think we do complement each other well. I mean, the great thing is we are on the same page about what we want to do and the difference we want to make. But I think, you know, we have different strengths and different weaknesses. I think one way you make me a better person is you are such a big dreamer. You do come up with really big, challenging ideas. And I don't know, that kind of makes me feel more like, okay, well, I can dream big too. Those are possibilities. So I really love that about you. But you really just have, you know, so many great characteristics that, you know, help keep me centered. You're a great listener. And I think that's a really important attribute in life and in the work that we're doing. Also, you're very loyal to what you commit to and to the people in your life. And those things just have a great influence on us. But maybe the way you make me the best person the most is that you believe in me and you encourage me. And,
Yes.
you know, when you have people like that in your life, it does make you a better person.
Yeah, that is so true. And I love, you know, how you opened up with that, because I feel the same way. I feel like I have grandiose ideas. I do. That's how they start. And then I just fly by the seat of my pants and I figure it out, or people around me are very good at what they do and they make me look really good. You understand? I have great ideas, but I don't know how to always implement them. And sometimes they work out great and we're fortunate, and sometimes not so much. But I feel like you have those great ideas, but you build a solid foundation and you build upon them. You take an idea and you make it great. Whereas I have a great idea, but it doesn't always have the foundation that it needs to. So I have to backtrack sometimes. Does that make sense? So I appreciate that. And I think it's great that, that we recognize that in each other, because you have an idea, Liz, and you make it great, but you lay the foundation in it. And I can see it in the projects that you have within the Mama Bears. You know, everything that I've seen grown, like the Mama Bears to the Rescue and the banner blankets and the just anything you put your hand to. I just love seeing it blossom like it does.
Well, thanks. I also have some great people to work with, and I want to shout out to one person, and that's Sandy Van Dyne, because I'm telling you, she makes me look good too, because she's a great organizer, and she's you know, just really good at details and making something work, and it wouldn't happen without her.
Yeah, I agree. And I would be amiss if I didn't give a shout out, not only to the national board that has helped laying the foundation. You know, Free Mom Hugs was just like an explosion in so many ways, but it was almost like we had to try to put the cat in the bag. And so we have a national board now who is functioning and participating and really helping the movement stay. But from the very beginning has been Katrina, my friend, and she is an extension of me in every part, like Sandy is to you. I know that she is an extension of me If something were to happen to me, I know she could see it through, you know. And anyway, what we would do without them, I don't know. I would be under this table in a fetal position, probably.
Me too.
Yeah, but you do make me a better person. I value everything that I just value your voice, your opinion. I can glean so much from you, and I know that you are a safe person that I can say, well, what about this or what about that? And I know that I'm going to get an honest answer from you. And so, you know, not only do you hold me accountable, but you challenge me in the very best ways, and you never make me feel small, or not that anybody really does, but there are a few. But you just build me up, and just by being a strong, independent woman that you are, challenges me to be the same. Like, I often ask myself, what would Liz do? I really do. And I can laugh with you. I laugh, you know, just at some of the things that you say. Your characteristics just bring me great joy. So you're a good friend.
That was fun.
Yes.
I love that.
I love you. And I love that we're kind of dressed the same. And we got our mood rings on. What's your color, girl?
Oh, mine's kind of like a pink. I don't know what that means today. Oh, wait.
I'm gonna have to Google that.
Oh, it's kind of turning blue now, isn't it?
Well, blue is the color for love. That means that you're in love.
Oh, I like it. Us and our mood rings.
I love it. If I ever do conferences or speaking tours or anything like that, I'm going to have like a table with my book and resources, things like that. But I will have a bucket of mood rings.
Oh, I love it.
I promise you, I will.
That's great.
Uh-huh.
I love. Okay, should we get down to more serious business?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So kind of the outline for this conversation comes from what we were planning to talk about at Wild Goose this year.
Mm-hmm.
And Wild Goose had to be canceled because of the pandemic. But that is a festival that happens every year in the hills of North Carolina. And Sarah and I were there last year. Sarah, you had been there before. Last year was my first time. Mm-hmm. And Sarah was interviewed last year at the festival, and that was a great session. And then this year we were going to be on stage together, just in one of the, tents, not the main stage, and have a little conversation. And we had, a few talking points that we were going to cover. So since we couldn't do that this year, we thought, well, we still want to talk about those things. We think they're important things to talk about. And so we want to talk about it. And the first thing that we thought we'd start out with, just to kind of make sure that, we cover all our bases, is that Sarah and I would talk about our movements, the Free Mom Hugs movement and the Mama Bears movement, and how they got started and kind of, what they consist of. Sarah, do you want to go first?
Okay. Well, as many of you may or may not know, I have a gay son. I have 2 children. Our youngest son is gay. When he came out, I didn't take the news very well. I thought I was the only mom in Oklahoma with a gay kid. And then that journey took us from the church to the Pride Parade. And I'm not the first mom to offer free mom hugs at a Pride festival. But in 2015, I made a homemade button that said free mom hugs. And from that experience, we started the nonprofit Free Mom Hugs. And that was in 2015. And then, but I also wrote a book, How We Sleep at Night. And on the day that this book came out, I found the group. If I'd had the group, it would have been in the book, but I probably wouldn't have, I don't know if I would have written the book. I'm glad I did. But almost to the day when the book came out, I found the private online Facebook group. And there I realized that I wasn't alone, and I found my voice. And really that was the birth probably of Free Mom Hugs. And so other moms and friends and dads and allies, we got together, and it was just a small group in Oklahoma, you know, and we'd show up at Pride festivals, and we got plugged into the local Pride and PFLAG group, and just started pouring in and hearing stories, and you know, decided that we wanted to help and be a loving presence. So we started helping where we could, maybe helping someone with a bus pass, or a transgender friend get their name changed, just basic needs. And that's how Free Mom Hugs got started. And then shortly thereafter, I was invited to, by the voice of the Mama Bears, Jan Hatmaker was looking for someone to do a podcast with. And oh my gosh, the name just escapes me, but someone nominated me from the group, and then all the moms chimed in. And so Jan Hatmaker had me on a podcast, and that almost went viral, because shortly thereafter that, she went to her Pride festival with a Free Mom Hugs button, and it just blew up. And then a lot of people know me as a stand-in mom. I started officiating weddings, and anyway, I don't want to get too far. There's so much that's happened in a very short amount of time. But to sum it all up is this: the Free Mom Hugs movement, the mission statement of Free Mom Hugs is to empower the world to celebrate the LGBTQIA+ community through visibility, through education, and through conversation. And that's what we do while giving hugs.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. It's a really positive movement. And, you know, what I love about your organization is, yes, you do so many wonderful things, but you give everybody a place where anybody can start. And that is just to give a hug, whether that's in person or verbally. There's a lot of ways we can give hugs. Mm-hmm. But the message is, you know, to spread love and kindness, and you know, to celebrate people for who they are. And I love that.
Yeah, I learned a lot about when I saw other people celebrate and accept Parker, when I didn't know how to, or even if I wanted to at one point. And I'm transparent with that. But seeing other people accept and celebrate my son really set a wonderful example for me. So that's my hope, is just to what I would have done to see a mom like me then, now, you know. Anyway, yep.
Yeah, and now we can be those moms.
Yes, and we are.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, the Mama Bears, well, you know, as most things are, it's a process of how things evolve. Yeah, my son came out like a dozen or more years ago. You and I have very similar stories. Mm-hmm. We both come from conservative Christian backgrounds. We were both very involved and grounded in our evangelical churches, close families, and our, you know, sons came out in their like late teens or early 20s. I mean, they were basically adults. Right. 19, I think, is when Nick came out. How old was Parker?
21 when he said, I met someone. I need you to be okay about it. Yeah.
So, and it was hard for us at first, you know, because it made us have to really stop and consider what we believed. We knew what our religion, our faith taught or thought, and we knew our sons and who they were. So we knew something didn't fit. I was very alone when my son came out. There were basically no resources. I mean, there was PFLAG, but honestly, I'd never heard of PFLAG at that time. Most of the organizations I knew about were, you know, saying it's wrong to be LGBT. You can't have a same-sex relationship. So, you know, they weren't a lot of help because I knew things weren't fitting. And over time, I was able to connect with other, you know, people who had looked at this issue and really studied it and thought about it. And eventually, my own faith led me to become affirming, because we can talk about that more if we want to at another time. But as I studied and thought and prayed and listened and learned, I realized that, you know, what I thought the Bible said, it didn't say. And it turned out for me that in order to be a good Christian woman, I would have to be affirming. So after I became affirming, people that I'd met along the way started sending parents to me who had kids that were coming out. Mm-hmm. That led to me starting a blog, and eventually that led to me starting the Mama Bear Facebook group, because I didn't want other moms to be alone.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to change the world, and I knew I couldn't do it. I knew I couldn't do it alone. So I had a little, a personal agenda in there too. I wanted to help people, but I also wanted them to help me do this work. And that one Facebook group, I didn't know if it would work or not. I didn't know if people would really like, what I had to create, but that one Facebook group grew into a whole organization. It's beyond anything I ever dreamed. We have 5 or 6 subgroups for different reasons. We have several projects that allow the members to get involved in advocacy work and to support LGBTQ people. We have a lot of resources available that we have gathered. I mean, not that we've just created, but resources that we've gathered from moms over the years that we can, share with people. And we have over 12,000 moms in the group now. Sandy and I were talking yesterday, we'll probably have close to 14,000 by the end of this year, because of the rate that we're adding people.
And I understand that you have a waiting list. You have a waiting list of people, because it's not just something, you have a series of questions to make sure it's the right fit, the right, place.
Yes, we do have a process that, all the requests have to go through. And we also limit how many new members we add each week. Because as we add new members, we invite them to introduce themselves and, get involved and read through the post. And so we just feel like there's a pace that's healthy for them and for the community.
Yeah, I love that.
So we do.
So
we almost always have, I would say we always have around 100 people waiting to be approved.
When I joined, I think there were 250 moms in the group. I love it. And most of our chapter leaders came from the group. We have chapters in every state now, and of wonderful, wonderful moms and allies who are just really representing in their state and their city. And it's wonderful. I love it.
Well, I love it. And I think you guys just hit a milestone, didn't you? I mean, 80,000 followers or something like that?
I don't know if we're there yet. I haven't checked in a couple of days, but we have a wonderful, vibrant, very successful social media platform. And we had that before the pandemic. And I'm so thankful, because we were able to use our social media platform in a way of just keeping people connected. And you can always find positive resources, positive just reinforcements on a Free Mom Hugs chapter page. And the chapter leaders are doing such incredible work where they're at. And I'm so happy.
I love that. I also love their Instagram pages.
Yeah, they do great social media pages. I just love it. I love everything about it. It's positive. When you go to a Free Mom Hugs, or even you have sub pages on Twitter now, on Instagram, and I love just the positive reinforcement. There's enough negativity, but I think, people complain about social media, but I love the power of it. I've seen wonderful connections. I mean, think about just the private group alone. If there was nothing else, just the healing and the connection that comes from that. But you're going to find a positive message at a Free Mom Hugs Facebook page or Instagram page. And hello, I went viral. I didn't even know what that meant, but I love the power of social media. I love it. So I do no complaints.
I mean, really, neither one of our organizations would really be able to have gotten off the ground so quickly and have such an impact without social media. And so it really is great. I mean, Yeah, I love the connections. I'm sure there's negatives to stuff, but I control my feed a lot. Most of everything that comes through my feed has to do with either free mom hugs or mama bears.
Well, I don't think you can go wrong either way.
I agree. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how our movements got started. And I just want to say this, because we work together so much, and because mama bears go out and give free mom hugs, and because free mom hugs has so many mama bears involved in it, a lot of people don't realize that our organizations are independent.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
I know it happens to both of us. Sometimes I'll get an email or a message saying, "Hey, can free mom hugs do this?" And it's like, well, I'm not the person to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the same thing happens to you. I mean, I love our connection, and we do a lot of the same work, and we work together a lot. But we are independent, and our organizations are separate. Your organization is actually a 501(c)(3).
Mm-hmm.
My organization is actually an LLC. It's not a nonprofit. Yours is. So there's some differences in the way we approach things, but I think
Mm-hmm.
our organizations fit together really well.
I couldn't imagine, you know, not not having the resources that you provide, and I think it's a beautiful, beautiful connection that we have together, and I'm just so thankful that we have each other to point to. So
Me too.
yeah,
Okay.
double trouble.
one
Good
question.
trouble.
One question we didn't decide to include is if you and I ended up in jail, what would it be for? We're not going to answer that today.
It
We'll
would
just
be,
say
yeah, it would be good trouble. Rest assured.
it'd probably just be like disturbing the peace.
Probably. Yes.
Okay, in a good way, good trouble, like John Lewis said, we'd be disturbing the peace. Okay, what are some pivotal moments in our journeys? Because, like we said, these things don't just happen overnight, these movements. There are things that happen that change us and
Mm-hmm.
start to shape us into the people that we are and help us tap into, what we really care about and what we really want to do, help shape our passions and our, the places that we want to go. So for you, what are some pivotal moments in your journey?
I think first of all, having to, I say it a lot that when Parker came out of his closet, I went into mine. And I really had to search myself. It started with me because I had to search myself. What do I believe? Why do I believe that? And then it was a process from there. And it didn't happen overnight. It was painful. It was at times devastating, the things that we went through, not only as individuals, but as a family. When I think about those times and missing an entire adolescence of my son's life, pivotal moments, yes, but some of them are hard and yucky and embarrassing. But I like to think I'm on the other side of all of that. There's still difficult challenges that we face as individuals and organizations, but being able to meet those head on and work through those pivotal moments, realizing that who I am, what's at the core, what do I value, and my morals in myself as a human being, as a spirit-filled human being, as a woman of faith, as a mother, and it's that process. And then participating with humanity. If I see a need, the pivotal moments of seeing a need, and do I have what's going to fulfill that? And if I have it, then I'll do it. But if I don't, then it's not my burden. See, so pivotal moments, seeing other people celebrate my son when I didn't know if I even wanted to or how to. That's the truth. And that was because I was frozen in my fear and ignorance. A pivotal moment of hearing someone's story and having great empathy and compassion and being moved by that and having that at the forefront of your mind in everything that you do. A pivotal moment of seeing the future from the past and being able to have hope in that and move towards that when you maybe don't feel like it or don't know how to go about it. Those to me are pivotal moments. And to be able to see those pivotal moments even in other people's lives, in you and in me, and yeah, those are pivotal moments, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah. As I was thinking about this, I kind of thought of three things that I think were really, they just had a big impact on me. When my son first came out, I'm a researcher at heart. So when my son first came out, the first thing I wanted to do is research. And one of the things I did was get online and, Google and search and read and, try to hear what other people were saying and thinking and looking at every different view. And back then, Facebook was not big, but blogs were very, very big. And that's where most of the online conversation was taking place, is in the comment section of blogs. And I would sit for hours and read the comment section to, maybe a very short blog post. It's like a 2-minute read, but then the comments would go on and on and on. And there was just so much to glean from these comments that, just everybody could make. And one day I was reading through the comments to a post. It was somebody had posted something about like, the church should be nicer to LGBTQ people. And I was reading through those comments, and a gay man commented and said, hey, I don't want the church to be nice to me. I don't want anybody to be nice to me. If they don't approve or affirm me and my husband, or I think he said my partner at that time, because at that time, same-sex marriage, we didn't even expect that to ever be legal. And he was like, if you think being gay is wrong, or you think being in a same-sex relationship is wrong, I don't want to have anything to do with you. I don't want to be your friend. I don't want to be a member of your church. I don't want you in my life. And as I read that, I thought, you know what? If I was gay, that's the attitude I would have. That's how I would feel. And that made me realize that I was pretty damn lucky that my son still wanted me in his life, knowing at that time that I did not affirm him. That I did not think it was going to be okay for him to date and fall in love and have a life with someone of the same sex. And I was thinking, wow, I don't know if I would want to be, I don't know if I'd want my parents to be in my life if they felt that way. And it was just a real pivotal moment for me, because I just felt like I just really need to think about this. I need to be more open, because my son is showing me a lot of patience and grace by continuing to be in a relationship with me. And I really this could go badly, is what I started to think. I started to think, you know what? My son could get to the point where he doesn't want to have anything to do with me. So if I'm wrong, I need to find out.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So that was a big pivotal moment. So I did. I became more open-minded. I listened to both sides. I became affirming. Okay, but I still wasn't saying anything out loud about it, except to my son and my husband and, my immediate family. But what I did do is I made a lot of connections with other people who were affirming. So, of course, I was out to them, but I still had this part of my life that I was very, quiet about being affirming in. And one day I read a blog post from a pastor that I really admired and had a lot of respect for. His name is Hugh Hollowell, and he still has a wonderful ministry. He works very hard to help homeless people. And he doesn't have a church, but he is a pastor. But anyway, he wrote a post and came out as affirming. And he acknowledged in his blog post that, you know, this was a risky thing for him to do. He would lose a lot of support for his ministry, but he had come to the conclusion that being silent was giving consent to non-affirming practices and to non-affirming churches who were doing so much harm and damage to LGBTQ people. And I was so excited that he wrote that because I needed to hear from pastors who were affirming, but it was also very convicting to me because I was staying silent, except in this very safe community where everybody already agreed with me. And so I was very convicted. And as things would go, within a short period of time, I don't know, within the same month, if not the same week, somebody contacted me and asked me if I would write a post for their blog about being affirming. So I did, and it, you know, because of Hugh's post, I felt like I had to do it. I couldn't say no, and so that was a real pivotal moment for me to stop being silent and to speak out and use my voice. And then I guess the other thing I thought about is I was very lucky when I was trying to search around and find people to connect with. I connected with a person named Bill Prickett, and he introduced me to a man named Michael Bussey. And Michael, yes, he is the original, one of the original founders of Exodus. He didn't stay in that movement very long. He fell in love with another guy that was there, and they realized that the whole thing was not only kind of a fraud, but damaging. And so they left that movement. But Michael's always cared about survivors of conversion therapy. And so he had started a group, an online group for survivors of conversion therapy. And Bill and Michael allowed me to join that group, not because I'd ever been through conversion therapy, but kind of in a way, our family was a survivor of the message of conversion therapy. Because we had, because of that theology, we had not been able to be safe people for my son to come out to, you know, at 11 or 12 when he was realizing he was gay. And so that was very pivotal for me. I got to hear all these stories from these survivors of conversion therapy. And really, I would say that group really turned me into wanting to be a very vocal advocate. And I learned so much from them. So yeah, those things really shaped me a lot.
Yeah, I love that you have all that experience to glean from, and how it shows in everything that you do. And you took me back to a time, you know, Parker came out at 21, and when he turned 21, he said, I met someone and I need you to be okay. And then at one point he said, I sucked it up for 21 years being your mom. Now I need you to suck it up. No, he said, I sucked it up for 21 years being your son. I need you to suck it up now and be my mom. And that was like a pivotal moment. Like, oh, you know, this, like you said with Nick, we still have our children. We still have relationships with them. And it's not always the case due to alienation and self-harm and at-risk behavior and all of those things. And I'm so grateful, but we know the cost of that.
Well, and going to that Pride Parade was also a very pivotal moment for you, Sarah.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
and that's like you joining the private group of Michael Bussey. And then that was like my getting plugged in and hearing from this beautiful community and seeing what's happened, not only in history, learning about that, like learning about human sexuality and the history, and then testimonies from beautiful gay Christians, and just thinking, what's happened? What's happening? You know, well, and just being accountable to that.
Yeah, we didn't even know the damage. I mean, we did not realize the damage this was doing to people. We didn't realize how it was harming them, and all the things that it was developing in LGBTQ people depression and anxiety and self-loathing. I mean, we didn't know about this. Nobody was talking about it back then. I mean, now we wouldn't have an excuse not to know.
No, because we're accountable, and you realize how much of a bubble that we were in. You know, you had church 3 times or more a week, and you just rotated between church camp and church, you know, fellowship, even in our own homes.
Exactly.
We didn't go beyond that boundary, and oh my goodness, once you're forced out of it, you just see a whole new world, and you realize, wow, the power of that on both sides.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot to think about.
I need a drink.
I took one while you were talking. Okay. The other thing we wanted to do, because people are always asking about this, is we wanted to offer some tips on how to be a better LGBTQ ally and friend. Because I think there are some basic things that, you know, people can do. They're pretty simple things, I think, but it's always good just to kind of point them out and to get things kind of boiled down to a few points that people can, you know, relate to and put into practice. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. So a few tips about how to be a better ally and friend to the LGBTQ community for me is kind of like a phase. It might be just a matter of listening, being available, pouring into the services. If you can't be available physically or because of a COVID pandemic, you can be an ally and advocate by supporting organizations that are doing the work, who are in a position to better serve the community, and get plugged into your local PFLAG, your Free Mom Hugs group, you know, just be a part of it, being physically active, and then being vocal about it, sharing your story, sharing your experiences. It can be as simple as having a sticker on your window or your bumper sticker, or wearing a rainbow t-shirt to the post office. You know, there are subtle ways that you can do that. Or I am reminded of one time in particular when I was shopping with a transgender friend, very dear to me, and I noticed some people in the distance, they were staring and scoffing at me and my friend. And I remember walking down the aisle and I saw, you know, the individual doing that. And I said, why don't you take a picture? It'll last longer. You know, there are times to call, you know, behavior out. But I think most importantly is to understand the power of fear and ignorance. Understand it respectfully. It's a powerful thing, but also understand the power of education and love. And it can be a simple sticker or saying, take a picture, it'll last longer. So just knowing when to react. How about you, Liz?
Yeah, what you said about listening, I think that is the number one thing. Be a good listener. I know in the Mama Bears to the Rescue group, where we offer support to LGBTQ people, as moms, I notice that we want to solve people's problems. And most of the time we can't. Most of the time we can't solve a problem. And I really encourage myself and all the moms involved in that kind of work, stop it. Stop trying to solve people's problems. The best thing you can do is to be a good listener, to be compassionate, caring, concerned listener with empathy and understanding and encouragement. And so, yeah, I think being a good listener is, if I had to pick just one thing, that would be it. I also think, like you said, we have to remain teachable. We got to be open-minded. We got to be willing to learn. And I do like to remind people that being an advocate can be hard sometimes. Being an ally can be hard sometimes. We're not a member of that community. We love them, we care about them, but you know, being outside, there are things that we will get wrong, that we won't understand. And so sometimes we're going to be criticized. Sometimes we're going to be corrected. And that can be discouraging. but I say, don't quit because of that. It doesn't mean you're a bad ally if someone criticizes you or corrects you. We just have to be in a constant state of learning. I've learned when I get criticized or corrected, I thank the person. I say, I'm sorry, I'm going to do better in the future, and I just appreciate you giving me that input, and I try to move on and do the best I can. So yeah, be open-minded and be willing to learn, be a good listener. Be inclusive, invite LGBTQ people to your home, to your events, to dinner, to lunch, really be inclusive and get them involved in your life. I think the best way for us to learn to be a good ally is to be in relationship with LGBTQ people. Mm-hmm. And finally, just like what you said, you just did, stand up to homophobia and transphobia when we see it. It can be hard. I mean, especially sometimes as women, we think, we don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to be rude. We don't want to cause trouble. But like you said earlier, there is good trouble that we can cause. And I find the best way for me to be brave enough to stand up to homophobia and transphobia is to have 2 or 3 things in my back pocket to be able to say. And they don't have to be, necessarily, abrasive things. Maybe sometimes all I say is, well, as a mom who has a gay son, I see that differently. And what I found is most of the time when you do stand up to people, most people will kind of take a step back, mm-hmm. and they'll stop. So I say, we really do have to be brave enough to speak up against homophobia and transphobia if we want to say that we're an ally and an advocate mm-hmm. and a friend of the LGBTQ community.
I agree.
And you're really good at that, Sara. You are. You're really good at that.
Well, I've been in error as well. I mean, I could tell you stories of when I've been corrected and reprimanded, and you learn from it and you do better, because I don't always get it right, but I try my very best. And sometimes my reaction has caused, it's not always been the best way, and I've had to go back and apologize too. But I've learned from it and hopefully better because of it. Education. I mean, just getting educated. There's so many resources out there now that no matter where you stand, and like Liz says, you had a few tools in your you said in your pocket, some tools in your pocket or whatever you said. Be equipped, because, and I tell people all the time, the more information you have, it will not only bring you peace, which brings about confidence in what you believe to be true, and it will bring about peace to you and prepare you with an answer, even if it's to yourself. So get educated. There's so many resources out there now to not have a better understanding on whatever it is on that spectrum. So anyway,
I
education.
Agree. Yes. We said we were going to discuss how to cope when friends or family members are not affirming of our LGBTQ loved ones. I'm wondering if we shouldn't put that off a little bit till the end. I think one of the questions that one or more of the questions that we get, that we got for today, kind of include that. And we can see if there's anything we want to ask. You like that? Okay. Oh, look at us making decisions on the spur of the moment. I love it. Okay.
Because we're grown and we can do what we want.
We're grown women. We can do whatever we want.
Yes.
This is G-rated, right? Okay, mm-hmm. So I am going to pull up a question on the screen, and I was wondering if you would read this first question when I get it pulled up. Sara, hold on. Let me pull it up here. Not that one. This one.
This is from Lisa in Ohio, And they write, I am new to the Mama Bears group. However, I have enjoyed reading story after story of so many people like my two sons. I have three sons, two are gay. I have been struggling with my faith for a few years now. How can a loving God who created my sons hate them and condemn them to hell? If them being gay is so wrong in God's eye, why did he create their brains the way that he did? My second son had a very harmful interaction with my father-in-law. My father-in-law took my son to lunch 2 years ago to tell him he was doing wrong. It was a phase and how he made my father-in-law uncomfortable. Okay, so the father-in-law is telling one of her children that it's wrong, how it makes them feel uncomfortable. And he tossed out all the typical Bible verses to him, trapped him in a restaurant while telling him all of this. What do you say to your father-in-law after crushing your son? I have not really talked to him in 2 years. I respected him at one point. Now I can't even look at him without thinking how mean he was to my son. And to top it off, he has no idea that our third son is gay. He created a huge gap within the extended family by having one conversation that my husband specifically told him not to do. But being older and wiser, my father-in-law did it anyway. My son has been with his boyfriend for over 3 years, and they still do not acknowledge him. When Bible verses are tossed at me and my sons, what should I say? Is there a verse in the Bible that I can redirect people to? Thank you for your time. Oh, Lisa.
Wow.
Oh, well, first of all,
oh my gosh.
yeah.
That's really hard.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Well, I think that the fact that you haven't spoken to your father-in-law in 2 years says a lot, speaks volumes, and it's a part of my thinking of just protecting your family. I'm so sorry that your son had to endure that, and shame on your father-in-law. And not only did he disrespect and bring that burden onto your son, but he disrespected your husband after your husband voiced that he not have that type of conversation. So double shame. And if you give me your father-in-law's number, I'll call him. And no, I'm teasing there. This is very upsetting, and understandably so. If it were me, I would continue with that distance, but I would make it very clear to your father-in-law how that is upsetting, and it has upset the family, and it's something that is still upsetting, and it upsets people that you share it with too, because I'm upset about it. But I would reinforce your son that is, again, I'm going to go back to the power of fear and ignorance, that was spoken, that it was wrong for him to take him to a public place and have a conversation like them. There's so many things that are wrong with the way that was even handled or even brought about, and it never should have happened. So just reinforce that you don't believe that way, your husband doesn't believe that way, that's not the way you're raising your family, and focus on those things. But I would let your father-in-law know, and I know Liz has the answer to this, so I'm going to let her address it because I love it.
Well, I was very upset to read that too. And we do hear stories like that in the private group for moms all the time. It happens way too often that we have close friends and family members who not only are non-affirming, but they go out of their way to, tell us or our children about it. And I think, there are people in my life that are non-affirming that I can have some kind of relationship to, but that's only if they handle, their non-affirming beliefs in a particular way. They can't be saying things or doing things that are actually harmful, to my son or my family. So, I just hate to hear that. As far as asking about a Bible verse, I don't know if there's a Bible verse really to throw back. I will say, I think there's, for someone who's really wanting to listen, hey, I always say, you can lead someone to water, but you cannot make them drink. So sometimes when we first talk to somebody, we can't tell if they're really thirsty or not.
Mm-hmm.
But as we talk, it doesn't take long to figure out. So if someone isn't thirsty, we can say all the right things, give all the right resources, share our story, our journey, and, it's not going to make a difference. But I do think there's a little bit of value in sharing a little bit, even with someone who's not thirsty, because they might be thirsty at some other point in their life.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I like to share, and I would say it is a biblical answer to those who throw a Bible verse at you, and that's in the book of Matthew, I think maybe chapter 5. But Jesus says that, you're going to know a good tree by the fruit that it produces, because a bad tree can't produce good fruit, and a good tree can't produce bad fruit. And what I think is that good theology, good ways of living are going to produce a lot of good fruit in your life. And if our theology, if our beliefs, if the positions we take are not producing good fruit in the life of those that embrace it, then it's not good theology, and we need to rethink it. And I think that's a very strong biblical response to people who are throwing Bible verses at you to condemn LGBTQ people and to condemn same-sex relationships, because we all know, if we look very far, we see that anti-LGBTQ theology, non-affirming theology, produces bad fruit in the life of people that embrace it. They're overwhelmingly depressed, and they experience a lot of self-loathing. They are not healthy spiritually or emotionally or relationally, and many of them even have suicidal ideation, and we've even lost a lot of people to suicide because of this theology. So I say good theology should produce good fruit, and if it isn't producing good fruit in your life or in the life of those that are embracing it, then we have to step back and say we must have something wrong. So I think that's the best biblical response that we can give. And but yeah, I mean, so with some people, there's no answer except just to walk away. And I think that walking away from a toxic relationship is a healthy and good response. It is a Christian response, because we are not called as Christians to put ourselves or our families in harm's way because of any kind of toxicity or wrong or bad beliefs. So I really admire Lisa for having the fortitude and the strength to separate from that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
There are some other good references too. The Reformation Project by Matthew Vines has an excellent page about a biblical argument for LGBTQ inclusion, and he has a book out. Colby Martin has a book out. I think it's called Unclobber.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some good books out, and you can look on my Serendipity Doodah blog. I have my own story, how I became affirming because of my faith, not in spite of it. And then there's a really good short post on there that takes each of the clobber verses and kind of explains them in detail why they really don't condemn, same-sex relationships. So there is a lot of good resources out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of good resources, and I don't think I would add anything to that, but just know when to save your pearls. There are people that had that type of mentality with the very best of intentions in the church that we served with. They would, try to have those conversations with me, and I really wasn't equipped. And I would really try to have that dialogue with them. But as I found the resources and offered it to them, they weren't interested in that. But, a few years later, when they have a loved one come out to them, then they'll really want to have a conversation. So I would say hold on to your pearls, and have the conversation. But if they're receptive and willing, you're going to have a good dialogue and they'll be receptive. But if not, save your pearls, because they're not there.
Yeah,
and I've been on both sides of that. You want to be approachable, but you need that boundary too to keep your family safe and healthy. So I've been on both sides of that.
Yeah, I know you've probably heard me say, Sarah, that we don't need to be carrying the burden.
I love that.
For those friends and family members who are non-affirming. And it's a kind of a little simple thing, but what I suggest is to find a way to say to those people that their non-affirming positions are not okay with me. And that even if we are able to keep some kind of relationship going, I want them to know that their non-affirming positions do impact the relationship that I have with them and that my family has with them, and that it always will impact them. And I don't know, I kind of like to say this. I feel like it's me giving it back to them. Like, you know, I'm not carrying this anymore. This is your baggage. This is your burden to carry. And I'm not going to stay awake and worry about it. I'm not going to wake up and wonder how I can change your mind. I can't change your mind. You have to change your own mind if you're open to that. But I want to give that away. I don't want to be weighed down with that kind of baggage. I want to be free from that. You told me what you think. I told you what I think about what you think. And now I'm moving on. If you need some resolution, then that's your problem.
And I love that. You saw me going like this. I'm just eating it up because it is a burden. And you, Lisa, your family, your son, it's not yours to carry. Give it back. And I love the verbiage. I mean, even if you wanted to, I think you have a blog on this as well, the burden, about the carrying the burden. But, you know, I've used that. I've said, you know what? That's your burden. That's not mine. I'm not going to carry it anymore. Or I've been carrying it, but I'm not going to carry it anymore. I think it gives a beautiful, like I learn by visuals. I'm a picture person. And I think that's a beautiful, visible illustration of what's happening with words, and even with the very best of intentions, but you just give it back. So write some of that stuff down, put it in an email and send it, or just hold on to it and remind yourself of it. So.
Okay, now we're going to go back and find the next question.
Number 2, I love this one. I mean, I love it.
Yeah, this is a good one. I'll read this one.
I mean, it's bittersweet, but yeah.
A thing nobody warns you about when your kids come out and you affirm and love and are proud of them is that you will then become the safe mom to their group of friends, many of whom will be in crisis themselves at some point, because safety and suicide stats for LGBTQ kids are sobering. This means you may end up patching up a kid who has cut her arms, scrambling to find a bed or a meal for a kid with nothing and nowhere to go, or grieving over a kid who died by suicide. What suggestions do you have for handling this? Kelly in Colorado sends in this question. Well, that's absolutely true. And one thing I love about the people involved in our organizations is they do want to spread their love and support outside of their family. And, you know, we always say, you know, your kid is our kid, or we talk about our kids all the time, you know, like we're all one big family. And to some degree, I think we are in this, you know, in this journey, in this work. We are kind of all in it together. One thing that, you know, a little motto that the Mama Bears have is better together. And not just better together within the moms, but better together with the whole community. And so we do find ourselves in these situations. What suggestions do I have for handling this? Well, like I said earlier, I do think we have to be careful and not put ourselves in a situation where we feel like we have to solve every problem. But you made a good point earlier, Sarah. If there is a need and I do have a way to meet that need, then I have to be able to recognize that and be willing to do something. Some needs I can't meet, but that still doesn't mean that I can't be a loving presence in the life of that person. Even if I can't solve their problem or meet their specific need, I can still be a loving presence. And having a lot of resources at hand is really important. Because a lot of times we can't meet a need, but we may have a resource that person can reach out to and tap into, and it can make a difference. But also have a good support system around yourself, because doing this work and being that safe mom can be emotionally draining. So we have to take care of ourselves. Self-care is very important.
Yeah, I can't add anything to that. Just reinforce knowing the resources that you have locally. More times than not, well, I mean, you know what, I'm gonna say that. Social media, you get connected with people all over the world, but know how to find those resources and point people to the resources that you have. That's key. And know that you are not a mental health provider. Unless you are, then use that, but more times than not, we're not mental health providers. And I've had to catch myself here where I just try to solve every problem and be that, resource, but I have to recognize that I don't, I just, but no, you're not a mental health provider unless you are, and know your resources. And 9 times out of 10, people just want people to listen to them. Just let them tell their story and be sympathetic and understanding as you can, and try to just reassure the person that, it's okay, that their story, that they matter. And they say just one affirming person lowers the self-harm, the at-risk behavior, the suicide rate, just one person. And this, person is just continue to be that safe mom. But just know your limits. And I think that is serving the community. That's really serving the community, is when you know those things about yourself and people around you. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Oh, and I just want to say, I know Kelly from the group and her being online.
I thought that was from Kelly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kelly.
And,
oh my goodness.
And she's just doing amazing work there in her own little circle. The way she does take in and care for LGBTQ people who need support. So thank you, Kelly, for doing that.
Yes. Thank you, Kelly.
Okay, let's look at the next question here.
Number 3, this is.
Yes. You go ahead and read this one, Sarah.
All right, I'll go. Said, dear Liz and Sarah, I would love to hear you talk about how you handle non-affirming family. In our family, there were people who didn't come to our son's wedding because it's a gay wedding, citing their Christian faith and saying his wedding was not of God's will for them. Their decision was hurtful to our reason, his husband and other kids, and my husband and me. As an extended family, we have hardly spoken since the wedding. We feel completely committed to our son and his husband and feel completely justifying. Oh, okay. We feel committed to our son and his husband, and they feel completely justified in condemning their marriage. If we view people, especially religious people, as being on the spectrum from openly embracing the LGBTQ community on one hand, yet to vile bigotry on the other, and family and friends fall all along that spectrum, how do we make mature decisions about when to help bring people along and when to draw the hard line and cut off that relationship? Some of the people who are rejecting our son and his marriage are elderly, and it's quite likely they don't have a lot of time left, and yet feel disloyal to our kids to carry on as if nothing happened. When there's little or no chance someone will change their mind, what do you see as an option for relationships? What do you see as the LGBTQ ally responsibility in helping bringing people along? Where do you personally draw the line in your relationship as parents of LGBTQ kiddos and allies to the community? Wow. That's a lot. I'm sure I botched reading it, but in a nutshell, I just feel like this is the series, the construct of everything that we do, that we deal with on a daily basis. I think how we deal with it, I keep going back to understanding the power of fear and ignorance. I think if I could, Liz, what spoke to me in this question is that understanding the elderly, the generational gap. We have to understand and keep in perspective the demographic of where a person is born and raised, the educational that they had access to, and just their demographic, their geographic, like what did they grow up with? Like I have neighbors who are elderly. Some of them are so affirming because they've seen so much in their lifetime, while others, they're just limited in what they've experienced or what they've learned in their life. So understand that perspective, what they've had access to in their lifetime. But I think we touched on all of these, about having boundaries, knowing whether to carry that burden or not. And please know that this is something that we all, as individuals, as parents with gay children, and as families, have to grapple with. And knowing what's best for that. How do you make mature decisions? And that's, I think it's all about perspective, understanding the people who are non-affirming in your life, what they have access to, and then go from there. And your family comes first. You're not being disloyal to your children by supporting them and celebrating them. And the last thing, and then I'll let you answer, Liz, is how we react to something has a ripple effect, you know, whether that's positive or negative, and how you react to it is just going to affect everything in yourself, your family. So perspective, and yeah. How about you, Liz?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said. Let's see, some practical things I was trying to think of. One thing that I think you can do is, if you have family members that maybe you'd get together with for holidays or special occasions, and they're not affirming, maybe you can be proactive and plan those things in your own home, where you kind of, you know, are the person that is setting the precedent, and where, you know, your children are free to be themselves. You know, if my son's in a relationship and he's in my home with the person he's in a relationship with, I don't expect him to act like they're only friends. I don't care who's in the house. I want them to, you know, act like, you know, they're a couple, just like any, you know, couple would act, which may mean that, you know, they sit close to each other or put their arm around each other. I mean, there are things that are appropriate among couples when you're in public that couples often do, but a lot of times same-sex people in same-sex relationships feel leery to do. And I want my home to be a safe haven for that. My son has to look over his shoulder too many times when he's out in the world. I don't want that to be the case in my home. And if I think I need to let people who are coming into my home know that in advance, then I will let them know. Maybe I'll just say, I know you're not affirming of same-sex relationships, but I want to let you know that we are. Of course, you do know that, but you know, we won't ask our son and his boyfriend or fiance or husband, whoever, to hide that. So if that makes you uncomfortable, you may not want to come to my house for this gathering. I just, you know, think maybe we can take kind of some control of some of these situations, still leave the door open for relationships. But again, we put the burden on them to make these decisions instead of us. Now, let's say we have to go to someone, you know, we're invited to a family gathering, or, you know, I don't know, a friend's event or something, and those people are not affirming. What do we do about that? Well, I think we have to look at each situation individually. Are these people who are just not affirming, but they're keeping that to themselves? Maybe that's an easier relationship to maintain. Are these people who are likely to say something harmful out loud when they see us or see our kids? Then maybe we can't go to that event or that gathering, and maybe we can't have a relationship with them. But maybe that means we need to, invite them to lunch and say, I need to have a talk with you and let you know why I can't come. So, I think there are things we can do. There are ways that we can handle this in a mature and civil manner, while also setting up healthy boundaries for our kids and for our family.
I couldn't agree more. One thing that I remember back, Parker was married. He's no longer married. They're divorced. But I remember planning part of that wedding and going through the invitations, and people that we knew wouldn't come. We knew. And some people surprised us and they came. And looking back on that, I wish that we would have thought to go ahead and send the wedding invitations anyway, because then it's on them. You see, if I wasn't at that time of the wedding, remember, I wasn't really fully affirming even then in my understanding. But I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to be at that wedding, because if I wouldn't have gone, that would have caused a huge rift between me and my son. So I went, even though I wasn't really where I am now. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, and I have couples, I officiate weddings, and they say, should we send invitations to, aunt and uncle who are not affirming us? I said, you know what? I think myself, what do you got to lose? And if they don't come, it's on them. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get that. And that's kind of, I think, where I land too. Now, having said that, my son, when he got married, and again, he's not married now, he is divorced. But when he got married, him and his husband decided that they had a limited amount of people they could invite to their wedding. We all have a budget we're working with, right?
Right.
And when they started looking at the invitations and the list, they decided they would invite people who were all in and affirming, and leave out the people who were not affirming. So, there are different ways to look at it, but it's not that they were being vindictive. If they could invite everybody, they would have. But since they did have a budget and a limited amount of people that they could invite for the budget and the space of the venue that they were using, they decided there were enough people on their list that were totally affirming, so they went that route.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Different circumstances, but I do think there is value in finding ways to include non-affirming people if they want to come into your space and you think they'll at least be somewhat well behaved. I mean, we don't want to expose our kids to too much homophobia or transphobia, because it's so damaging. And of course, I mean,
right.
Not that people at a wedding are going to say anything, so that's kind of a unique thing. As far as staying in relationship with people who are non-affirming, I mean, I don't know, like I said earlier, for me, it changes everything. It doesn't mean I can't have a relationship with you, but there is always this elephant sitting in the room, and I know he's there, and you know he's there, because there's this whole thing that we're avoiding, when we're together. And it just changes everything. I mean, I have relationships in my life that are completely different today because those people are not affirming. And that's just a reality.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to the next question.
That's true.
Now, this question actually has two parts. So we'll kind of answer each part separately. Why don't you go ahead, Sarah, and read part one?
Okay, part one. I know in my head I'm not responsible for the suffering of my trans son experience before coming out 2 years ago. They're 28. In my heart, I feel our family immersion into the evangelical church in which they left 10 years ago prevented him from being himself. I didn't see his true gender when he was at home. Looking back on pictures, it's evident. How do I heal from those feelings?
Well, that's an important question, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if you're able to express everything that you said in the first paragraph, parent, if you're able to talk to your son about those things, I mean, I think that in and of itself, just that paragraph and acknowledging those things would be healing to both you and your son. And to be able to move forward, that I have a lot of regrets and things that I regret even today. And I speak about those frequently, and they sting even still. But the fact that we can learn from them and to be able to communicate those things with our family is healing. And then to be able to share, hopefully save other families from going through that. So I think you're on the right track. It's always going to sting, I think, to think of the things that you regret in your life. You could have handled things differently or done things differently. Who wouldn't? But to learn from them and not repeat those things, I think would be healing. How about you, Liz? What do you think?
No, I think that's, you're right on target. I guess the only thing I would add is, and like you, Sarah, I have a lot of regrets. I wasn't affirming when my son first came out, and I wasn't, available when he was young to be a safe person for him to come out to. So I do regret that. And that's been, it's taken a long time for me to go through the process of healing from that. My son, I think, forgave me before I forgave myself. And I'm very grateful for that. But I think one thing that can really help us is something like the online community for moms, to be in the presence of people that are supportive and understanding, where we can share our stories, our regrets, our feelings, our fears, our anxieties. It's very healing. If you can do that in person, I think it's even more powerful. We can't do much in person right now because of the pandemic, so we're limited. One thing that we are going to be starting through the Mama Bears organization here in the next month is something called The Den, where we're going to have some small groups that can gather online through something like this on Zoom. And we will have conversations about specific subjects. And we're offering that because we do feel like that can be very helpful to moms to be able to talk together and discuss things. So I'm excited about that too, just another tool for us to offer to moms. But yeah, I think finding a supportive community where you can be open and honest and transparent is really healing.
I love that. And I couldn't agree more.
Okay, let's go to the second part here. Let me get that pulled up and I'll read it. Now, both of these are from the same person, a mama bear who prefers to remain anonymous. My son is so private now and tells me he doesn't share any social media because it's raunchy. I want to be more involved in his life, but there's very little communication. I know he struggles with anxiety, and maybe that is playing a role in his distance from me. Perhaps there are too many family triggers. I just don't know, but I feel very hurt by his actions. How do I cope with the distance between us? Well, that is hard. And I don't think it's uncommon for parents and kids to go through periods where there is a distance between us. And it can be really, really hard for us moms. We want to be close to our kids. We want, we want to just feel a strong connection. And sometimes we go through phases where we can't. And I don't know, I was really thinking about this. I don't know that I have particular, I don't know that I have really good advice for this, but some things that came to mind, and I'll just throw these out there, is that we can just try to find things that we think they're interested in. And maybe when we run across something like that, we can shoot them a text or an email about it. You know, I don't know if it's a celebrity or a hobby or any little thing they're interested in. We can just kind of like try to open up some communication with them about something like that. You know, that may seem meaningless, but maybe it's just a connection we can make. Or we can just drop them a funny card in the mail or a little gift that might have some little, you know, special meaning between them and us. I don't know, just make some little gestures like that, and a lot of patience. And again, have your own supportive community that you can kind of talk to about this. I don't know. What do you think, Sarah?
No, I struggled with it too, because if your child is not really, well, I mean, I could see my children every day. I want to talk to them every day. I mean, I tend to kind of smother, you know, I love them so much. And I know you do too, but I love what Liz you know, find that connection. Think past yourself and your own, you know, what you're going through. And I get that, but find a connection. What are they interested in? And just try to connect that way. And I hope that will make that avenue available to where you can kind of have that connection. But I think a lot too is whatever you're missing in that relationship, it's going to sound weird, but maybe try to find it somewhere else. Put that energy into something else, you know, like maybe you can pour into something else and that will sustain your nurturing, and then you won't take it so personally, because I don't think it's really personal if that's just how they are wired. Do you understand? Your need to have that connection is not in their part of their personality. Like, for example, excuse me, Parker and I, we talk every day. We're like this. We talk every day. We're connected, but our oldest son, Travis, we can go a week without talking. It's just not, that's not in his DNA to have that, you know, connection. So I don't take it personally when I don't hear from Travis, you know, every hour, like I might hear from Parker. So anyway, I think perspective is important, and don't take it personally, because that's where things get really awkward and weird, and you know, you act in ways or react in ways that it's not healthy. So that's what I think.
Yeah, that's good insight. That really is. And you know, maybe ask in the group what other moms suggest. I mean, I love our communities because we just have like such a rich source of insight and wisdom. And I learn something every day by being around other moms of LGBTQ kids and hearing, you know, what they share and you know, their experiences and how they're responding to them. It's just really amazing.
Yeah, I don't get to interact as much as I used to, but I really do. I do want to just address the group that has grown so much. But I mean, I spend time in there and I learned so much from you. And I just appreciate just being vulnerable and transparent. And but that's how we're better. That's how we find our voice. And I do want to share a story that I just heard of recently. I've been listening to John Lewis. He has a book. I don't know how old it is. You know, I just found it online. I ordered it because it's Audible. But I've been listening, and he shares a story about Rosa Parks. And maybe you already knew it, but it's new to me. So I want to share it. But Rosa Parks, we know her as sitting on the bus, civil rights movement. She gets on the bus, she sits down, and I think she's quoted as saying that she was just tired. And I learned about that in history, right? But what I didn't know is that she had been to a training at a high school for advocates, for civil rights activists. She had been just, I think it was a few weeks before that bus incident, she was in a group of people who were in starting this movement. And it takes a lot of movements to change a nation, he says. But he writes from the point that she had gone to this conference, if you will, like a mama bear conference. And she had just been poured into and learned and gleaned. And that equipped her to sit on that bus. Do you see the connection there? And that's what you do for me. I am because of you. You are because of me. And there's an African word, and I'll say this and shut up, but there's an African word called Ubuntu, and it means I am because of you and you are because of me. And I'm just so empowered by you. I'm thankful, incredibly thankful for Liz, what you're doing. But the group is a movement, and you're changing a nation. And we owe it to our children. We owe it to our grandchildren. And this pandemic, this civil uprising has a tendency to be really overwhelming. Like, I just cover my head sometimes and like hide. But you make me brave. You empower me, you strengthen me. So please know that I'm just so incredibly grateful, and it's only going to get better. And this is, whether it feels like it or not some days, but this is an exciting time to be alive. And the last thing, and I swear I'm going to shut up, is that what I love about Liz is that many things I love about her, but Liz, you are a politically minded person. And I have to say, when I don't know what the answer is politically, because I'm not a politically minded person, I didn't realize that my straight son has more rights than my gay son. But being politically minded and using your voice, getting educated and voting is going to make the world safer for our families. And so if I never say another word, glean from history and education and use our voices. And I think that's probably the most powerful thing that we have collectively and independently as our groups move forward. We are a movement, strong and mighty, and we have the power to sit on that bus and say, enough is enough.
I love it. I always say, when you get together with Sara, two things are going to happen. You're going to laugh, because she's going to make you laugh. She's always got a good sense of humor, but you're also going to go away as a better person, because she's always inspirational.
Thank you, Liz.
And she always has good things to share. I love that.
Thank you. I love you.
Yeah. I just, I want to encourage every parent out there of LGBTQ kids to wholeheartedly affirm and celebrate your kids. It's not enough for us just to be accepting. We've got to go overboard because of the obstacles that they've had to face in life. And when we do that for our own kids, we are changing the world, because I truly believe how the family goes, so goes the world. And if our families are passionately affirming and celebrating our LGBTQ kids, that's going to affect our schools, our churches, our neighborhoods, our who's elected locally and in our states, and that's going to get out into the national area and then beyond the boundaries of our own country. So wholeheartedly affirm and celebrate your LGBTQ kids, even if they seem resistant to it, like, oh, mom, quit it. No, we're not quitting it. We're not quitting it. We're going to do it because we need to do it. It's powerful, and it's what's going to make the world a kinder, safer, more loving place for all LGBTQ people to live. So go overboard. Go overboard. That's what I have to say. Sara, this has been wonderful. I hope we haven't gone on so long that everybody just gave up and quit listening, because I really think answering these questions were really important, and I'm so grateful to the moms that sent those in.
Yes, thank you for the questions.
Okay. Well, we're going to let everybody go because we've taken up so much time. So anyway, hugs.
Hugs.
Okay. I love you. Bye.
I love you. Bye-bye.